Hey guys, welcome to the stream. I'm your host, Cassidy Streeter. Welcome to this week's edition of Cast. Um, we don't have a ton to talk about. I'll be honest, everything seems to be centered around, the championship games this week, as well as some defensive coordinator interviews. Nothing too spicy in all honesty, besides, the Chargers hiring Harbaugh and clear, and then the Falcons interviewing and hiring their new head coach. I forget his name. Apologies. Um, but of course, looking ahead, we obviously have, it's championship weekend. The teams that are playing, as we all know, are the 49ers hosting the Lions and the Ravens hosting the Chiefs. Obviously, last week we had the Chiefs kind of upset the Bills. I feel like, that game was not very good. You had Bass, miss a field goal late. That was like his only one that he missed, for a while. Because I think he had nailed every either game taking or, lead scoring field goal and and tying the game. And of course, I feel for him. It's tough to be a kicker in this league. You can be good the whole year, and then, you miss, the one kick that seemingly matters. But let me look ahead to these games and, of course, talk about them and give you guys my takes and opinions on them. Let me kind of look at the injury report here. See what they say. So these games are obviously they are both taking part in games that are happening on Sunday because we're out of the 2-day format. For the Diners, we do have Debo, who I heard was a 50-50. Really kind of bad if he can't go, to be honest. Nick Bosa, they're resting. Trent Williams, they're resting. Otherwise they haven't had, those two haven't practiced this week. You have Eric Armstead, who was a full practice and still dealing with that foot and knee injury. Dre Greenlaw, Achilles, still full practice. And really, those are the only players that I'm going to mention for San Fran. For the Detroit, of course, everyone knows the big injury that they have is Frank Ragnow, who they list as ankle, toe, knee, and his back. And we all know that he was grimacing at the end of the last game they played against the Buccaneers last week in the divisional round. Excuse me. But otherwise, I kind of expect Ragnow to play. He's such a key and focal piece to that offensive line. He's the leader of that offensive line, even though Penei Sewell is, arguably a better player than he is. They're both focal on that O line. And we kind of saw with Ragnow's injury earlier this year that can lead to just the line not being as good. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm yawning so much. I'm a little tired. But if he doesn't play, I think that's a bigger blow than Debo Samuel is. If Debo Samuel didn't play for the 49ers, Um, the only other players I see on here is that we have Alex Anzalone with his shoulder and ribs injury and was limited in practice on Wednesday and Thursday. Josh Reynolds limited also with ribs. And then of course there's Sam Laporta with his knee. He didn't practice on Wednesday, but on Thursday he was a limited practice. I'm assuming he'll go. He seems like a tough cookie and he'll play through the injury. Plus they have a trainer on there that has they talked about I remember hearing about on the McAfee show that he does wonders with recovery. And the Lions had hired him for this year. So I really don't, I really think that, these guys on the Lions will play. Debo is obviously kind of one of those where it's like, even if he plays, is he going to be as good as he was with that shoulder injury? Time will tell. But let me go through and kind of break down this game. So we have the 49ers hosting the Lions. Obviously, the Niners' last game coming against the Packers. The Niners, this is the I guess the night game at 6:30 and that sort of thing, so it's more of a primetime game. They are giving the Niners a 7-point advantage to win this game. What I think, about this game is that, yeah, the Niners have been here like almost every year for the past few years. And we kind of know what they do. I wouldn't say what they do is easy to stop at all, because obviously they have the talent to back up the very good offensive mind of Shanahan, and their defensive line is the best in the league. One reason why I said that Ragnow playing is bigger than any other player on that offense potentially, and especially coming and have flashbacks. Yeah, maybe. But what I'm gonna say is that if Ragnow doesn't play, I think that it becomes way too uphill of a climb for the Lions. I think it's kind of crazy to me, I guess, that the Lions are kind of, I wouldn't say they're incredibly disadvantaged in this game, because but a 7-point spread, this doesn't really tell me that it's going to be that close of a game. Like, I don't expect it to be tied most of the game and then the Niners go up and there's no hope for the Lions type of thing. Like, I expect it to be kind of a gut wrenching game. And, looking at this game, I think that it's crazy for me to say, but Goff has had experience on good playoff teams. Obviously the Rams is who I'm referring to when they were contenders for years and years in a row. And he has looked better. Like, I think against the Buccaneers, they were getting pressure on him. Not to say that they're obviously their D line isn't as, crazy or mad as the Niners, and I would never, bet against the Niners D line, to be honest with you, even if you're talking about the best O line in the league, if there was such a thing. But looking at the Lions, I think they're really going to have to play some kind of hardball where they're running it with Montgomery and Gibbs a lot, and they're going to have to take away some of the time from the Niners. Because the thing about the Niners, and if we learned anything from when the Niners played Green Bay last weekend, is that they can strike pretty quickly. Obviously, I'm talking about, you know, a couple of the drives where where the Niners scored quickly. I'm talking about the Kittle touchdown where he beat Darnell deep, and I guess, there was the chance that that was just a broken down in coverage type thing. The McCaffrey run where essentially the whole defense of the Packers, like the rushing defense, didn't exist besides Savage again, and he was left on an island to try and tackle McCaffrey, which I believe, there's not really anybody that's going to be able to tackle him one-on-one unless they're like the premier elite safety in the league. And even then, it's like, it's a toss-up. It's a 50-50. Like, that's the best odds you have, I feel like. So it's like they struck quick on those two plays, and then you talk about the drive that they took the lead and went up 24-21. Obviously, Purdy kind of turned it on, and some of the wide receivers made some spectacular catches that weren't even their big name guys. Like, I don't think Ayuk really did that much last week, and he had guys like Jennings and Kittle making catches, and then finishing him off with a McCaffrey run, up the middle on like the 4-yard line. But otherwise, everyone knows that with how much talent, and a lot of the guys that the Niners even have as backups are kind of like speedy guys, in my opinion, that are, if they escape, if they slip out because you forget about them, they're just as lethal as like Ayuk and Debo and Kittle, but that's why I think the Lions really have to lean on their O-line. They can't allow the Niners to get ahead quick, which the Niners could very well get ahead quick. And this is why I'm now going to revert to talking about the Niners and the reason why they have an easier path to victory in this game. Because they are rightfully so the favorites in my eyes. But you look at the defense of the Lions, they've done a good job against the run. They made that a priority in the offseason. It's no secret. But the thing about the run with the Niners is that it's complementary to the pass. You are running the football as the Niners as kind of a deceptive play, countering to your passing game. And the thing about this game is, and I mean, I guess I don't know what the weather is, but I honestly feel like Purdy is going to be way more locked in on this game, that he is not going to allow for the game to be kind of up in the air essentially the whole game like he did against the Packers. And with that, the the Lions are going to have to actually play pass D, and their passing defense has been atrocious. They don't really have anybody that's like, ooh, we're scared of this guy on their defense. Like, I think that their safety, I forget his name, he's a young player, he's promising, but he's just a safety. He's not going to be able to cover all these short routes that the Niners run. And the Niners, it's going to be very tough. And, the pass rush of the Lions has been kind of coming alive, and you see Hutchinson kind of becoming that player they expect him to be, where he is disruptive, he, is tall, he's lengthy, he's everything you want in a pass rusher, where it's like he's strong, long, and, that makes him very versatile physically, as well as all the skills he has. He's going to have a big game of getting pressure on Purdy if they are to, limit this pass D, because I don't see it coming from the secondary side. But it's going to be hard because the Niners, not like they don't throw deep, but they don't throw like deep. You'll see Purdy, launch it for, 15, 20, but it's not like they launch it, 40 yards downfield to these guys. They play a very methodical, slow, grind down your defense style of offense, in my opinion. And Purdy is just the conductor that's orchestrating, that he's moving the ball down the field. With that being said, I don't think I'm going to give the Niners a 7-point advantage in my score prediction, like it says here, even though I am going to give them the advantage. I think that the Niners are going to score. I'll say 30, and I think that Detroit is able to score 24 or 27, which I know I didn't say 7, but it's like that's a 6-point, and I mean, but otherwise I think that, this is definitely, the Niners game to lose. You ask anybody and everybody knows that this is a team that's like, we are finally poised to go to the Super Bowl, especially after last year. Their season ended is solely because of, injuries in the championship game against the Eagles, in a game that, to be honest, with the way the Eagles played last year, it was kind of up in the air who could win, but ultimately it was given to the Eagles just because of, quarterback injuries. But that is my take on, 49ers Lions. I think that, it definitely has the potential, I think, to be a lot closer of a game than the other one. I think that people are overestimating how close Kansas City can keep, State of Baltimore, to be honest with you. But Niner Gang, do you have any other opinions or, things you'd like to say and discuss? I'm going to leave it open to you since you're the only one who's chatted so far. And yeah, the Lions, as a Packers fan, I respect the way the Lions have developed over these last like 4 years now, and that I do think that they deserve, everything that they've earned so far. It's a good story. I don't have any sort of bitterness towards the Lions, even though they were like a dirty team, with like Ndamukong Suh and a few of other guys, like over 10 years ago now. But they've done it right. They hired a coach that is respected. The only thing about their team, that they really need to fix is their pass defense. But yeah, if you don't have anything further to add, I'm going to move over to Ravens hosting the Chiefs. Let me see here. Oh goodness. Sin is playing some sort of sound. Okay. Always with the ads on ESPN. But let me look at the injury report here right quick, like we did before with the other ones. But let me see. The Chiefs have a ridiculous amount of injuries here. This looks like kind of a smoke screen, in all honesty, of injuries. I think that the New England Patriots really did this a lot under Belichick, where it's like, oh yeah, all these guys are on the injury report. We have Sky Moore, who has been missing games. I don't expect him to play, to be honest with you. Isaiah Pacheco does have an injury where his ankle toe, he didn't practice on Wednesday and Thursday. And, I expect him to go. He's a tough kid. Who else on here that's really... Is there really anybody else that I'm like worried about, about not playing? They even have Blaine Gabbert on here with an oblique injury, you guys. Like that's funny. You do have Trent McDuffie, I guess, listed with an ankle, but he's full practice, Wednesday and Thursday. Rashee Rice full with a hammy. Kadarius Toney was full on Wednesday, but limited on Thursday. Maybe he had a setback. I haven't really kept up too much with the Chiefs, but I know Tony has missed games, and I mean, it doesn't seem like he's going to be getting a lot of targets anyway because he falls into that category to me of like an untrusty wide receiver with how many drops he's had. Him, last week, Marcus Valdes-Scantling actually did pretty well, even though this whole team's had issues with drops. Like, let's not sidetrack. Rashee Rice obviously is kind of their gadget guy that's going to be like a spark to the team. That seems to be what the Chiefs are this year. They have Rashee Rice and Isaiah Pacheco as kind of their spark, their juicer players that they use to get something going. And then they have obviously Kelsey, who it's like he's going to get his yards, his catches. Didn't really do that much last week, but overall it's like that seems to be like the offense of the Chiefs, where they're having to rely on these guys for spark, run after catch yards and yards after contact, type of things. But looking at this, there's really no, to me, I guess they have Joe Thuney, who's, got a pec injury and he didn't practice at all. That could be bad. And, obviously, God, why can't I remember his name? It was there. Gosh, why can't I find him? Is he on here? No, he's not on here. So the big thing with the Chiefs to me was that one of their tackles, who was really good, that they brought in to obviously shore up the edge, he had been injured, but he's not on here anymore. So I there's nothing wrong with the Chiefs as far as I'm concerned. Looking at this, they're going to have the players that they want. Looking at Baltimore, only 5 guys on here. They've got Mark Andrews, tight end, one of the better better proven players on the Ravens, in my opinion. And he has an ankle injury, but he was a full practice Wednesday and Thursday. Marlon Humphrey is on here with a calf, but he was limited both days. And then you have, Rocky Sin, who is like their 4th corner, I think, or 3rd or 4th corner, and he was limited with a knee injury on Wednesday and then didn't practice on Thursday. So overall, the Ravens, they're fine. If they are this healthy this late in the year, that's just another reason of why they are so scary, is that they still have all of their best players. Nobody is, out that it's like, oh, we're going to miss. And that's just the, to me, that's just the icing on the cake for them. It's why they're the favorite to win the Super Bowl at this point, because they're super healthy. The way they play ball is just hard to predict and hard to defend, in all honesty, because it's hard to contain Jackson, to be honest with you. Not that the Chiefs can't do it. I think that if you spy him with Nick Bolton, you're losing a valuable linebacker, but Nick Bolton's not going to let him get out or get away, type of thing. But looking at this, depth chart for the Chiefs, they do have Rashee Rice and MVS starting with Mecole Hardman as their 3rd string. And, and then of course, Mahomes, Pacheco. I guess they do have Kadarius Toney's their 3rd, but, and then Travis Kelce. But, here he is. Donovan Smith, of course, not having an injury is huge. They have a pretty good O-line with Smith, Thuney, Humphrey, Trey Smith, and then, Jawan Taylor, who he's been kind of suspect. But this is a team that it's like you got big play with MVS, getting deep. You have, the check down the juicers, like I said, But on the defense, it's like you have Karlaftis, who has had a good year, Chris Jones, of course, um, and Mike Donna. But yeah, at your linebacker level, it's like you really want, to have guys that are going to be able to either, cover Mark Andrews, defend this run game. And, you really only have Nick Bolton on there that is like, the guy, that's going to be doing all of this for you. And, your cornerbacks, McDuffie, Sneed, you're going to have to defend Flowers, OBJ, and then it's like you have, Justin Reed, the speedster safety, and then Mike Edwards on the top. They're not really going to be of much use if you're not able to stop the run and keep containment on Jackson, in my opinion. Um, looking at Baltimore, we of course have pretty loaded offense. And with Lamar Jackson, honestly, the MVP favorite in my opinion, where it's like, I mean, he did so much. Gus Edwards, who has been doing well. They do still have Dalvin Cook and Justice Hill. I don't know if they'll get Dalvin Cook more involved. I think that he was more of a depth signing, to be honest with you. And then, of course, you have Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, and Odell. And I mean, Rashad Bateman has been kind of sneaky with some of the things he's done this year. Odell, I think, hasn't really had the game that you would expect him to have. I don't know quite what it is. I do think that overall, the Baltimore Ravens passing game just isn't what it could be and hasn't been the whole year, but that hasn't really mattered when you have an attack where you're kind of forced to play man on the Ravens because of these guys. You can't really do zone against Jackson. Otherwise, Zay Flowers is going to get open. Nelson Aguilar has, done some things. They've had a lot of contributors, just nobody that's really outshined what you would expect, And it's like, you can't really play up on these guys because, a guy like OBJ or Zay Flowers is just going to beat your guy. And I think that's one of the reasons why you've seen a lack of passing is that they play these guys really tough. And then you just see, a breakdown on a breakdown of the D line where Jackson escapes. I mean, you have the Texans last week that were gouged for quite a serious amount of yards, and people, I think, don't want to give the Texans credit. It's like they have a head coach that was, the leader of the Niners defensive unit. And, as your head coach and, did wonders for that defense this year. And you still can't stop Jackson. That's why Jackson is the MVP, because he's the only one in the league that really does what he does. Granted, he does have a good amount of talent around him. I'm not saying that he's carrying this team on his own. Otherwise, I don't think that he would have the year that he would. But yeah, looking at, the Ravens, O-line, you have Ronnie Stanley, arguably one of the best left tackles in the game. Linderbaum, a very solid center. And, Morgan Moses, who has been around the block quite a bit and done well for many teams. But this O-line isn't to be, trifled with. A very good unit. I wouldn't say the best. I wouldn't say the best unit remaining in the playoffs, but most of these O-line units are pretty good. But looking at the defense, you have Justin Madabik, as their defensive end, who, honestly had an incredible and insane year. I don't understand how he didn't get on All-Pro with the way that he played, really setting him up to have a huge contract next year, whether that's with the Ravens or somebody else, because, you have quite a bit of guys to worry about paying on the Ravens, to be honest with you. But yeah, Michael Pierce has always been, one of the just, body sucker in terms of, run defense because of how big he is. And then you also look at, Jadeveon Clowney, who's been just a journeyman rusher who has, done pretty well, year after year of, getting a contract and being with these good teams. And, not to be ignored, Kyle Van Noy. It's crazy to me that he is a backup, to Clowney. Not any offense to, Clowney or anything like that, but they're both crazy good players. Don't even make me mention Roquan Smith. Boy, am I glad he's off the Bears, in all honesty, as a Packers fan. Kyle Hamilton, you might as well say he's another linebacker. This guy is tall, he's big, he hits hard. Goodness. And then of course you have the corners, you have Brandon Stevens, Marlon Humphrey. I guess Rocky Sin here is listed as like the fifth corner, actually. That's kind of insane to me. I thought, he's not that bad of a guy coming from the Raiders. Ronald Darby, and then it's like Marcus Williams, also just one of those safeties. I mean, this Ravens defense, I wouldn't go to say as it being as good as the Ed Reed, Ray Lewis defenses, but who wants to play this? And overall, I kind of expect Mahomes to be under a good amount of pressure this game. And it's like we didn't even talk about, I guess, some of the backup wide receivers. You have Devin Duvernay, who has done some huge things as well. I guess I did mention Nelson Aguilar, but Duvernay is like the secret weapon that'll sneak off for a big gain with his athleticism and his speed. You also have the better kicker in this game, although that goes without saying with Justin Tucker. I think he's the best on many people's, lists of top kickers, like he has been for years now. But let me go over my analysis of who I think is going to win and my kind of brief breakdown of the game. Looking at the Baltimore Ravens hosting the Kansas City Chiefs, we have, two teams. Clearly the Ravens, the 1 seed, the favorite at this point to win the Super Bowl with how they've been playing. The most convincing team, of course. Going up against a Chiefs team that who knew whether this team could even make it here. Not a convincing win really against the Bills last week. And I mean, I would say that they more or less kind of lucked out and you're happy that they won, but it's kind of like, oh my goodness, like, the Bills defense is good, but incredibly banged up. And now to go up against I would say they're at 95% strength on this defense. Some minor injuries, maybe they're not even 95%. Maybe it's more like 98%, strength of this defense, as Marlon Humphrey's dealing with an injury, you are without, Tyus Bowser, I guess. And, Rocky Sin is a little banged up. Your cornerback core is minorly banged up. But it's like looking at, these teams, what I expect to kind of happen in this game is that the Chiefs, they're going to come out hot. They're going to come out aggressive. They're going to try to show that they're not going to be bullied. But they're not going to be able to keep it up. I think Chris Jones, unless he does have one of those where it doesn't seem to matter who's blocking him type games, I don't think he goes up against like Linderbaum or the interior of the, D-line and is able to get to Jackson. I'm sorry, but when you have a speedy quarterback, the last thing you're worried about is penetration up the middle. And if they can't get edge pressure on Jackson where he is contained, it's going to be a long day for Kansas City, like a lot of other teams. And this is, a Baltimore Ravens team, that ultimately was able to score a lot of points on the Browns, same division, obviously, in the year. And then they ultimately lost at the end of the game, but they were able to put up points. And the Browns, as far as I'm concerned, they were one of the hotter teams later in the year. And, you're going to have to at least live up to that if you're the Chiefs. And I just don't see how they are going to live up to it. I think that they have, George Karlaftis is good, but he's no Myles Garrett. You have Chris Jones, who's obviously, better than any D tackle on the Browns, yes, but you're also up against, Linderbaum, who's a solid center, with guard support, where their probably main focus is going to be Chris Jones. And who's to say that they're going to be able to contain Lamar, because it hasn't really been done too much this year. I do think I remember a game later in the year where it's like he really didn't run that much. I can't remember which game. I'd like to say it was like the second to last week of the season or third to last week or something like that. But overall, not many teams have been able to contain him. And even in that game, I would like to say that he threw for a ton of yards. So it's not like it's not possible for the Ravens to beat you with a passing attack. It's just that, once Lamar Jackson decides to run and he turns on the Jets, he's as lethal as, Vic was on the, Falcons many years ago when he first entered the league, and was a real life cheat code, for your team. Because there's really no one else that is as quick as Lamar, and has the agility to just work around and keep on doing things, and keep the defense from getting to him. But, at the very worst, most of the time you're going to force him to throw it away, which, yes, somewhat of a moral victory. But when your guy can break for 15 yards on a run, goodness, you're going to have to do it on multiple downs, which is why it's so tough to compete against a Ravens team that, runs the ball pretty well as well. Gus Edwards, they may not go as much inside because of Chris Jones or something like that, but who cares? It's a gritty Ravens offense that is led for sure by their quarterback and the power of their O-line being so strong. Looking at Kansas City, the drop passes cannot exist in this game. As far as I'm concerned, if you get into a situation where you are any more than, if I'd like to say 3rd and 6, if you have any longer to go than that, you are kind of screwed. Unless you have one of these players on the Chiefs that's like a Rashee Rice or Isaiah Pacheco that absolutely is like, I am refusing to get off the field. I am always going to make a play. I am always going to be your man, which I just don't see working. The physicality of the Ravens defense and how good they are around the board, it just doesn't seem like it's plausible to me. This is, and I mean, granted, this is the second time that Mahomes will be on the road now. He's 1-0 on the road again, because of the Bills, kind of collapsing at the end of the game. And I just, Baltimore, those fans love that team. Not that Buffalo doesn't love their team, but it's going to be a loud, hostile environment again. And I think it's going to be really, really, and I mean, if I was a Ravens fan, I would think that this is my year to lose, because of how good this team is. So with that, with a score, this is a game that I do think that I do think each team is going to kind of try and play like keep away from the other offense as to not get blown out or, limit the amount of chances, as these are two coaches that have been in the league for a long time now. I think that Harbaugh's actually been on, coaching the Ravens longer than Reed's been on the Chiefs, but these are both, and it's going to, maybe it will be closer. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe this will be closer than the Lions Niners game. But thinking about this game, it kind of screams to me that potentially what I think the score is going to be is I think that the score could be 27 Ravens to 20 with the Chiefs. And the reason for that is because I entirely believe that the while the Chiefs can have success because they're good, I think that the Ravens match up a lot better. You can plug, Roquan on Kelsey. You can, he's going to stop the run. He's going to be really tough for Pacheco to have these after contact runs that he has where he keeps fighting because of how good Roquan Smith is. And your wide receivers, even though last week it's like it was a messy game, it was a windy game, it was, cold and whatever, didn't drop as many balls, and Mahomes had a respectable completion percentage, even though he didn't throw for a ton, because of the conditions, and that this would have been foolish. I just need, how are you going to do it against, the toughest defense remaining in the playoffs? And the only reason I say that is because I think that they're better than the Niners on the back end, a little bit better. And, but otherwise, the 49ers and them, they have the best defenses left in the playoffs. And defenses win championships. I think the Chiefs know that, and their defense has been playing better than they have for years. But they're really going up against a unit that seems to be never faltering. So with that, Niner Gain, I don't know if you're still here or if anybody is here and wants to comment. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about this. If anything, or, who you think is going to win. Otherwise, I don't know if I really want to talk about too many of the like coach hirings. This might be the thing. Maybe I will make some comment. So the Falcons, I guess one of the reports that I heard of why they didn't want to go with Belichick is because they wanted someone for the long term. Seems kind of interesting to me that, Belichick is up there in age. He's clearly a candidate, for a head coaching job somewhere. Like, he hasn't officially retired. And I think that, he still wants to keep doing it. The thing with him, I guess, is the age. And I mean, if he really only said he was committed for maybe a few years, and the Falcons want a dynasty, I just don't like the hire that they made, that it's a D coordinator. Their defense was not the problem this year. It was their quarterback play, the fact that they had a QB carousel. They didn't really have that good of a run game, even though they had, or they have two good backs. with Bijan Robinson and why can't I remember the other guy's name? But yeah, he had like an 1,000-yard season last year. And then they go and they get Bijan because I guess I don't even know. I guess if the GM stayed the same, but he keeps going after weapons, and it's interesting to me because you look at their team and they've drafted Pitts, um Pitts, uh Drake, Pitts, Drake, they signed Cordero Patterson, who is also just a serviceable kick returner and third back, even though I feel like he could be a second back somewhere. I'm having a huge brain fart here. I feel like they have more than that, but and they definitely do. But the Falcons have loads of talent in every position besides quarterback, and it seems to kind of be the narrative of some teams that they have everything but the guy, and Ritter clearly isn't it. I would get rid of him. I would move on from him. I would trade him to a team if they have some interest, because if they can fix him or make him serviceable, he does have the athletic talent. He has the arm. He has all the physical capabilities that you want out of like a modern day quarterback. Honestly, reminds me a lot like Josh Allen, where it's like this dude's big and he's got good speed. He just doesn't really seem to want to scramble that much, and he just isn't accurate, and he makes bad decisions. But I want to say congratulations, I guess, to the Chargers. I really hope that Harbaugh works out for him. I have been rooting for Herbert to be able to have a coach that is going to actually take the team somewhere. Where it's like, the most success you've had was 2 years ago, where you made the playoffs and you were eliminated in the first round. And it's like, and then you have, last year where, oh yeah, we could tie it and get in against our division rival Raiders. And we call a timeout, provoking them to kick the field goal and, killing our playoff chances because they were going to take a knee. But I really hope it works out for him. As far as, other vacancies for head coach, there's really only the Seahawks. I don't understand why the Seahawks wouldn't be interested in him. Yes, I know they moved from an older coach in Pete Carroll, but you can't tell me that if Carroll got that defense on his hands that he wouldn't make them just insane. Maybe not Legion of Boom insane, but pretty damn good. And then it's like the offense. I mean, the offense problems, I think, really need to be fixed by making sure the O-line can pass protect. Because there were some games where Geno Smith looked like the guy, and then there were others that it was like, why the hell do we have him as our quarterback? And I mean, who knows what you do at quarterback? That's the only thing that's kind of not enticing about the Seahawks, because they don't have a high pick. So they're likely, not even eligible unless they're willing to trade quite a lot to move into like the top, 2 or 3 spots. It's kind of up in the air though too, because you don't even know if the Bears are moving on from Fields. I highly doubt they keep Fields. And draft like May or one of these other QBs. Otherwise, I think I'm going to probably call it there, to be honest with you. I hope your team, does well this weekend and wins if you still have your team in the running. Personally, I have the teams that I want to win, but I don't want to kind of project that here. otherwise, um, I want to thank you for watching this edition of Castcast, and as always, go Pack Go.